Well, the first time I ever saw him was kind of in conversation with him. He tried to buy me a shot at the bar, and I turned him down. I hated men at the moment. But yeah, and then after that, we went to my girlfriend's house. She was having kind of a party.
We were at a party, an after party, and one of her friends was, she wouldn't leave me alone. And I had just gotten out of a relationship, so I was single and I was just having a good time. And she wouldn't leave me alone, and I was kind of trying to avoid her, and trying to be the quick thinker that I am. I saw Allissa standing by herself watching somebody play a game of pool, and I walked up to her and asked her if she was single, and she kind of gave me a weird look like, yeah, why? And I'm like, well, I need you to help me out. This girl over here won't leave me alone, and I just need you to make pretend that we're talking and having a good time, and maybe she'll just leave me. She'll just go away.
And this one girl was kind of bugging him. She kept, I don't know, just bugging him, and he came up to me and he asked me if I knew her, and I did.
And it was kind of funny because when she asked me who it was, she looked and it was her neighbor Jess. She lived right next door to her. She looked at her, she started laughing, and I was wondering why it was. I'm like, what's so funny? And she's like, nothing. It's just who it is.
And we just got to talking, and we talked about our children, and that was pretty much about it.
And I don't know what prompted me, but I asked her if she had kids, and she said she had 2 kids, and I was like, because back then, I mean, that was like 10 years ago, so she looked pretty young, and I was like, no way. And then I had kids too at the time, so we kind of like, we had that common bond, and from there we just started talking, and we hit it off pretty good.
And he gave me his number, and we talked for about 3 months before we went on a first date.
I gave her my phone number. I asked her first. I said, "Do you want my number?" So because I didn't want to ask her for her number and be like a creep and be like, "Hey, can I have your phone number?" So I'm like, "Here, hey, I'll give you my number, and if you want to go out, just call me and I'll pick you up." And she gave me the "well, I don't call guys" line, and then I asked her. I said, "Well, can I give you my number?" And she said, "Sure." And she had no intent on answering the phone. She's like, whatever. She's thinking to herself, "Give me the number, and I'm gonna answer the phone." But I got lucky when I called her. It was the next day. I called her, and she answered the phone, and she didn't know who I was at first, but then she kind of felt committed to talk because she just couldn't hang up, and we actually hit it off, and we talked on the phone for, I want to say it was maybe 2 hours, maybe.
Wow. Yeah. Well, maybe it was 4 months, 3 or 4 months. We talked on the phone quite a while. And
then from there, it kind of like, we talked a lot on the phone because she lived in New Ulm, and I lived in St. Paul at the time. So it was like it was a 93-mile drive one way. So we kind of talked on the phone a lot, and then as the relationship grew, then I started driving more, and eventually it got to the point where I was driving every other day to New Ulm. Yeah, 186 miles round trip.
And we went to this place in Mankato, a small town where I'm from, and it was called The Neighbors, and it was the first time I ever had wine.
Oh, we went to this another restaurant called The Neighbors. Allissa, you could say she had like a sheltered life, I guess you could say. And so, we had talked about stuff that she always wanted to do and she didn't, like go to the ocean and do this and do that. And she said she had never been on a date. I didn't believe that. I was like, no way. How could you, you're a 20-something-year-old girl, you're this pretty, and you've never been on a date. So I was like determined to impress. So, at the time I was thinking it's like this little, like one of those mom and pop's restaurants, but it turned out to be this really fancy Italian restaurant. And I was out of my league because I had no clue what the hell's going on there either. And she was never been to a fancy restaurant like that. But it turned out really good because it got pretty funny because she'd never drank wine before. And at that time I was kind of like I had just recently single, so I was tasting all kinds of different alcohols that that I usually didn't. And so I was on a wine kick, and I'm like, hey, let's order some wine. And she had never had wine, and I think she had maybe like 2 glasses, and she was pretty tipsy, but she didn't want me to know that she was tipsy. And I always tell her, I remember this, but she would be eating and like the salad would fall off her fork, and I kind of like look away and pretend I didn't notice, and she'd be like trying to put it back on her fork. But The Neighbors was the first. I would say that was our first date, and it went pretty good considering that like she had never been on a date and never drank wine and got pretty tipsy, and I had never been to a place like that either. I mean, it was pretty fancy. It was. I think we were both a little underdressed too, but we had a good time. We made the best of it. She was just destined to go to the ocean, and you know, when I think ocean, everybody thinks like Jamaica, Bahamas, like pretty stuff like that. So I was kind of like, well, you know, I grew up on the East Coast, and I was always going to the beach in Jersey, but it's not like the beach in Jersey is not like the beach in Jamaica. Like the water in Jersey is like, it's kind of blue, but it's like a dark bluish brownish color. You can't see through it, as opposed to like that really pretty water. So you know, the first beach place I wanted to take her to was on the East Coast because my cousin was getting married. And it was our first time ever to go somewhere together as a couple, to meet my family and everything else, you know, the whole works. So I'm like, well, let's go to South Carolina because, you know, my cousin's in Marines and they live by the beach. You could see the beach, you could see the ocean, and we could hang out and this and that. Well, we wound up going there, and, you know, my cousin got married. We did this, we did everything, and we went to the beach. And she was just like, what's this? And I'm like, this is the ocean. And she's like, well, where are the palm trees? And, you know, she was kind of like, you could tell she was like, what the heck is this? Like a little disappointed. And so like, she was not really disappointed, but she was kind of baffled, I think, wondering where the palm trees and the blue water is.
We have been dating, it will be 9 years in March. Wow. Everything happened so fast. We dated for 9 years because after a year of dating, he went to Iraq. And then when he came back from Iraq, we were trying to figure out where we were going to move. He could either station in the cities or St. Cloud, and we picked St. Cloud. And then we moved to St. Cloud. About a year after being in St. Cloud, he went to Afghanistan. And then he came back from Afghanistan, and he had some issues. He has PTSD.
When I first got diagnosed with PTSD, a lot of people were saying about how the service dogs were helping soldiers out and different things. And Allissa went and she started doing all the leg work, and she found a dog, she found a trainer and everything, and she actually found several dogs. And she asked me up front, she's like, which dog do you like the best? And there was pictures of several dogs, like it was a rescue website. And so there were several pictures of different dogs. And when I seen his picture, it was something like, I don't know what it was, but something clicked. And I knew that, you know, it's like, you know what? He looks like a smart dog. I think we should pick him. And we picked him up. He was a little over 6 months old, I think, when we picked him up. And then he went to training, and he was there for, he was there for a while. We just got him back, we got him back the day after I retired, believe it or not. And so the day after it was kind of like my retirement gift almost. He came back, he was all trained and ready to go, and he's been with me ever since. He goes everywhere I go. That's it. We were together for about a year and a half, and I got orders to go to Iraq a second time. Now I remember the first time how it was, and I was thinking to myself, like I was factoring everything from the first tour this time, and it's like, damn. I was thinking one of two things can happen. Either, you know, I go to Iraq and you know, I lose this girl halfway through because of whatever, because, you know, some people just can't wait. Or, you know, I tell her how much I really love her and how much she means to me, and I, you know, ask her to marry me, and then like if we make it through the deployment, then it's a go. You know, what a better way to challenge your relationship than a deployment. And so I went and got her a ring, way above what I could afford anyways. And I took it to her parents' house, and I showed her parents the ring, and, you know, I asked her dad for permission to marry her and everything. And he said, yeah, and like, you know, I get along with her parents good, so we were all like happy and hugging each other. And then I looked at the ring and I was like, that's too small, I can't give it to her. So I wound up taking the ring and going back and exchanging it for a different one, which gave me time to plan out the proposal.
He proposed after a year of dating, before we even left for St. Cloud. In the town of New Ulm, where I'm from, he took me for a drive, for a cruise, and I remember we stopped a good friend of mine, and she was so excited, and she asking me if I saw it, and I had asked her, saw what? And he's like, shh. So then I got kind of mad. I'm like, what is going on, and what aren't you telling me? He wouldn't tell me.
If you put a billboard up, everybody's gonna see it. Well, I didn't put a billboard up, but I went to one of the establishments there, and they had a big, huge billboard that people drive through. Usually when they come through town, if they go to the other end of town, they got to drive through that area. So most people drove through that area anyways. I was in uniform because I just come home from work, so he just gave it to me for free. And so I put, will you marry me, Allissa, up there, and I was gonna drive her to the parking lot and propose in front of the board, but it started raining.
But anyways, we cruised around for a while, and there is a billboard, and he stopped in front of the billboard, and it said, "Will you marry me, Allissa?" And he proposed on his knee, and I said yes.
So it was raining, so I had to do it inside the truck, and I had a big old Suburban at the time, so I had a lot of room. So I had her cover her eyes up. I took the ring out, and she was sitting in the passenger seat, and I was in the middle, and I was on one knee, and I said, "All right, open your eyes." And I had her open her eyes, and she looked at the billboard, and you could tell she was just like, it hit her because she didn't know what she was looking at. And then I had the ring, and she was kind of like, she wasn't expecting any of it because she told me she wasn't ready, and I told her, I was like, I know you're not ready, and I know that this seems too fast, but I'm leaving here soon. And this is the only way I can, show you that I'm serious, and that when I come back that, we're going to be together.
Crazy that it's actually happening. I never thought it would happen, especially like this. We have 6 kids together, and we always talked about maybe going to Florida. When we first started dating, our first 3 years, we would take little trips to Florida. That would kind of be our go-to spot. So, he really wanted it, and I wanted something more than a courthouse, and to me, I knew he was always the one, and I didn't feel like rushing it, would change our minds. I mean, it hasn't. It's been 9 years, but this last year, we were actually saving up to get married, and last year we were looking into, because we were going to Florida, but we ended up taking all 6 children, and then his niece. So money got a little tight, and there's just no room for it. And it was our last year. His son turns 18 this year, so we wanted one last vacation, which was really kind of the only one with all the kids. We wanted to show them the ocean. It's always something I wanted. He showed me the ocean.
Well, there was a lot of reasons before, but now it's even more because just what we've been through together. When I got back from Afghanistan, it was pretty rough. I don't even know how to explain it. It was rough. Any normal person with a good head on their shoulders would have turned and ran and said, "Screw this! I'm not staying for this." But Allissa, she kind of, she took the bull by the horns, and she went up dragging me out of a lot of places that I couldn't drag myself out of. So that kind of that strengthened our bond because, the only other people that have ever done that for me are other soldiers that were with me. Nobody else. My parents have. Whenever I fell down, they picked me up, but that's pretty much it. And for her to go through something like that and not being a soldier herself, and to hear the experiences and what was tormenting me, for her to stand strong like that was just like, holy crap, man, this woman is something else.
Everything. Absolutely everything. You're gonna make me cry. I get emotional. He's the greatest guy I've ever met, by far. I came from a bad relationship. My first 2 children, he was really bad to me. Rudy took my kids in, like his own. He cares for them, he loves them, he treats me good, very good. He treats everybody good. He is just so, I don't even know the word for it. Anyone that meets Rudy just loves him. He is such a great person, inside and out.
She puts up with me, and she puts up with a lot of my my dirty habits. Being in the Army 23 years, you pick up a lot of dirty habits. You could sleep anywhere. You go dirty for long amounts of time, and most of the things that make everyday people flinch kind of just go past me, and I really don't notice it. But she's gotten used to a lot of this stuff. And the sad part is, like, when we first met, I had only had 3 deployments under my belt when we first met. so I wasn't completely cavemanish yet. So I still had some. I was still a little refined, but those last 2 deployments actually put me more into the. She jokingly calls me a garbanzo, because I have this bad habit of saving things. Maybe it has to do with my job when I was in the military, but like because I used to rescue people. But if like say a DVD player breaks, I refuse to throw it out until I can troubleshoot and do everything I can to save it. And so she's put up with a lot of my projects and failed projects and lived projects, and she just accepts me for who I am altogether. I mean, yeah, I mean, most wives are probably would have ran by now. I'm not gonna lie, it was challenging. You know, there was several times where I know she wanted to leave, and there's times where I wanted her to leave because I didn't want her to be miserable, but she stuck it out, and then you know, in the long run, everything worked out the way it should have been. I mean, everything kind of like fell into place, like with the wedding, and you know, we probably wouldn't be getting married right away either, because you know, we're still trying to. I'm just retired and everything, so I'm still trying to get all the ducks in a row, and you know, a wedding would have been the last thing on our minds. You know, we've been postponing it so long now that it's kind of like we're just like whatever. And so when they told us, hey, you guys, you know, you guys can be the next fairy godmother couple, we were just like excited. We're like, holy crap, we could finally actually make it official. And then it was kind of nice because, you know, it was like that moment where it's either now this is real, this is do or die, you know. And we were both kind of like, you know, we're here, we've been this far, you know, we might as well finish it up, and you know, and that's where we're at now.
They do good. Actually, when I first met Rudy, my youngest, or not my youngest anymore, but my daughter Bria, she was in diapers. Oh, wow. Yeah, it's been that long. We always reminisce, and the kids always ask, and Rudy has a better memory than me, so the kids always ask, oh, how was I when I was little? And he would always tell them stories. It's so fun. But they do pretty good. Right now, it's kind of a sad story. Rudy's son's not around. He'll be 18. We don't know why, but so he won't be at the wedding. That kind of gets to Rudy a little bit, but other than that, they all have always gotten along very good. You know, the girls fight a little bit. They
I mean, they're siblings now.
yeah.
They're supposed to fight.
Well, they're starting to get a little more mature, and they do a little better. And they're super excited for the wedding. They want to try and plan everything.
Are they gonna get beautiful little dresses?
Actually, the ladies making my dress, Jenmar, ironically had the same color of bridesmaids dresses laying around, and they gave us them, and they cut them off to fit the girls, and they added some beading to it. They're just beautiful.